From the deepest reaches of the interwebs are two guys here to reveal the secret sauce in helping you develop multiple streams of internet cash flow. Share the knowledge without all the hype. It's the Internet Income Show.
Oh, I like that.
Now get ready for two regular dudes helping you become a smarter entrepreneur, get more out of life, and set you on the right path to becoming happily unemployable. Your host, Dr. Mike and Eric Louviere.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Mike Wumeng with episode 26 of the Internet Income Show. And we've got one of our biggest guests that we've had on the program. He's a good friend of mine back in the day, and you probably, if you know anything about product launches, his name is synonymous with product launches because many believe he actually started the product launch, and I believe that as well. He came out with a product called Product Launch Formula. And I've known him, we were just joking just before the call. I actually attended his first 3 speaking engagements, and he's done multiple speaking engagements since. We got on the line Jeff Walker, and now Jeff Walker has literally transformed the way stuff is sold in the digital world after starting his first internet business out of his basement in 1996. I don't even know if the internet was around. And putting in years of trial and error, he developed a formula for launching products and businesses with instant momentum and massive success. Since he began teaching that launch formula in 2005, his students and clients have gone on to do hundreds of millions of dollars in launches. Well, I just pumped up your ego there for the last 30 seconds, but it's all true. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's great to be on with you, Mike. Yeah. It was, it's funny. 2003, I think, is when we met. It's been a long time.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's crazy, and we're all a little bit older, hopefully a little bit wiser. But it's interesting because I work with a lot of internet marketers, but then I also work with people in the quote real world with they own clinics and they own businesses, and your name just comes up as one of the teachers in terms of internet marketing. So
wow.
Congratulations on just getting it. But the thing is, what's cool is your ego has not gotten big one iota, at least that I know of.
Yeah, or I'm good at faking that.
Now I know the story because I've been with you almost since the beginning when you had 6and7.com, and I signed up for that thing as an opt-in way back when. I knew nothing about investing and things like that, but I think that was one of your first forays into internet marketing. But for the people who may not know the story, how'd you get started in this whole internet marketing thing?
Well, it's a long and twisted road. I mean, it's just crazy. But basically, I was I was in the corporate world. I was not a success there. I was a square peg in a round hole, and it just did not fit in. So when my wife became pregnant, we started looking around. And she was actually in school. She was going to school to be an engineer, actually graduate school. And at the University of Denver, University of Colorado in Boulder. And she right when she was graduating, our son was about a year old, and I was just floundering in the corporate world. So I just walked away. I said, I'm going to stay home with our son, and so I was basically home taking care of him. I was the primary care provider, Mr. Mom, stay-at-home dad, whatever term you want to use. And so this was in the early 90s. And then a couple of years later, we had my daughter, and then I was home taking care of a couple little babies and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And then one day that feeling of wondering what I'm going to do or feeling that I needed to do something got a lot more desperate because I was in my house. With the kids, we're in the living room, we're playing around, and I look out and I see my wife drive up in the middle of the day. And, in the middle of the work day, she drives up, parks the car, comes in the house. I'm like, that's sort of weird. She walks in the house, she's in absolute tears, she's sobbing, and she's like, Jeff, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting up in the dark. I'm going to work. I'm coming home in the dark. I barely get to see my kids. We're barely making ends meet. I need you to figure out some way to help support the family. If you could even make $10,000 in a year, that would be a huge help, and it would take some of the burden off of me. And I was like, this is a horrible moment for me. That my wife is like, basically, you're a failure. You're just not, you can't support the family. But I was like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to do. I walked away from my corporate career, which wasn't much of a career to start with. And, I've been, 5 years I've been taking care of the kids, and I had nothing going on. So, it's like I got really desperate then. I needed a change. And so one of the things I have been doing is I've been studying the stock market quite a bit. And, in fact, it was my dream to be a trader in the stock market and eventually support the family that way, which is weird because we didn't have any money to trade with or invest with, so it wasn't a great plan to begin with. But in any case, I at that point, I'm like, wow, if I could just I could just start publishing a newsletter about the stock market and see where that goes, see what happens. And so that's what I did. I actually wrote it was the Walker Market Letter. It was August 30th, 1996. And I sent out that first one and went out to 19 email addresses. And I say 19 email addresses because it wasn't 19 people, because one of those email addresses was my second email address. One was my wife's email address. But, I was grasping for straws. I was trying to feel good about myself, so I felt better saying I had 19 subscribers than 17. And it was just everyone I knew that had an email address back then. But then it started to grow through word of mouth. And, by my next newsletter, I had like an extra 1 or 2 people wanted to get it. And then the next newsletter, 4 or 5. And then I actually put up some web pages, or, a web page which felt like rocket science back then. I couldn't afford a domain name, so it was, it was my ISP/J Walker. And it was the ugliest. It was just ridiculous. It was just amateur hour. Still hadn't spent a single penny on the business. But it grew through, I started getting subscribers. And then, by like November-ish of that year, I was already up to like, I don't know, I'm going to say it was like around 1,500 subscribers maybe by then. Although it's been so long, I can't remember exactly, but it seemed like a ton to me. It seemed like I was having huge success. But, no money was coming in because it was a free newsletter. And so I had this thought, well, maybe I can sell these people something. And so I started to put together this plan to like create like a pro version of my newsletter, like a more enhanced version. And because I had never sold anything in my life, I'm not a salesperson, never have been, and still really am not. Didn't have any marketing experience, and no credentials either. I had I wasn't a stockbroker. I didn't have any, wasn't a registered investment advisor. Had no credentials whatsoever. I just was uncomfortable with the idea of trying to sell. I frankly, I didn't think anyone would give me money for something that I created. It just seemed ludicrous that someone would actually give me real money for something that I came up with. So in any case, I'm like, how am I going to, I have this desperate need to try to support the family, try to bring in some money, and it seems like this thing's starting to go, but it hasn't brought in money. So I basically started to romance the people on my list. I started giving them really cool stuff that led up to when I did this launch. And I didn't even think of it as a launch. I didn't know what I thought of it. I just thought I was coming out with a paid version of this newsletter. And so I just did this romance process, and little did I know that I was inventing the seeds of this whole idea of an online launch. And then on January 1st, 1997, January 1st, the absolute worst day in the world you could possibly, the worst day of the year to launch a product is January 1st. That's a hint for everyone out there. I didn't know it at the time, but I sent out an email like that night, 10 o'clock at night, sent the email, went to bed, woke up this morning, and lo and behold, there's an email from a gentleman in Switzerland, and it said, Jeff, I want to get this. I'm going to send you a check, which is awesome because I couldn't take credit cards back then because it was like rocket science. I didn't have a merchant account. I couldn't afford any of that stuff, and so I could only take checks. In fact, this is the first money I spent on my business was going to mailboxes, etc., and I spent $35 to get a mailbox for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the first money I spent on the business. And so I got this check. The guy said, I'm sending you a check. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I jumped so high, I almost put a hole in the ceiling. It's like, oh, my God. This is unreal. So long story short, over the next few days, I got in a total of $1,650 in orders. And
wow.
I was flabbergasted. I was just, for me, like the ultimate dream was to make $10,000 in a year with this, and I just made $1,650 in a few days. And depending on, for the people that are listening, some are like, wow, that's amazing. That would be so awesome. Other people are like, why even bother? Money's a funny thing like that. Everyone's got their own frame of reference. For me, I was like doing backflips. I couldn't believe it. But at that point, I had this one thought in my head, and this was a critical thought for me, and probably one of the first great thoughts I've ever had. And I don't know how I had this wisdom at that point because, frankly, my thinking has evolved quite a bit since then, and I was just an absolute newbie. But I had this thought, and the thought was, if I did this once, I can do it again, and I can do it again, and I might even get better at it. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. It's like I did a next launch. I don't know. It was later, 3 or 4 months later, and that launched at $6,000 because I'd learned, and my list had gotten bigger. And I'd learned, and then the next launch did $8,000, and it kept on going that way. A couple of years, I did a launch that did $34,000 in a single week, and that was the launch. That's when Mary and I said, okay, it's time for you to, to talk, for you to think about quitting your job. Because frankly, that's about as much as she was making in a year, and it's time for you to start thinking about coming home. And that was in '98, in the summer of '98. Then she did retire in '99. In 2000, we could move anywhere because the business had grown enough. So we decided to move out into the mountains in Colorado, and to Durango, Colorado. Did a launch that did $106,000 in 7 days. And that was that famous 6 figures in 7 days, that 6 and 7 launch, which was astounding at that point. And I did it to basically buy our home in Durango. We needed $70,000 to put down on it, and so we did this launch. How awesome was that? Be able to do a launch to make this down payment. And but then in 2003, I went to a marketing event. So I was sort of just operating in my own outside this whole I wasn't in the internet marketing world or the marketing world. I was on a few newsletter lists, but I wasn't of that world. So I went to this event in 2003, and started telling, just talking to people. I happened to mention I did $106,000 in a week, and they were like, "No way, that's unbelievable." So I started sharing that with a few people. A few months later, I went to that event in I think it was in May in Las Vegas, when I met you, and I spoke at that event and started to help a few people with their launches. And all of a sudden I realized this stuff, first of all, other people weren't doing what I was doing. And then I also learned that, in helping a few other people, they tried it in other markets. Like one was, I'd been doing the stock market, teaching people about the stock market. That's what my business was. But as far as I knew, who knows if this works in other markets? Well, I taught someone how to do it in the love letter market. She had an e-book about writing love letters. Worked for her. Then I helped John Reese. John. He did a product about internet, how to drive traffic to your website. That did $1 million in 24 hours. And all of a sudden, my $106,000 didn't seem so impressive anymore. But
knowing John, I think he did that just to spite you.
Exactly. So, but then John encouraged me to create I had just been informally helping people. I didn't get paid anything. I was just helping people. And then, John and like Yannick Silver and Frank Kern, they're like, you should actually, make a product and teach people how to do this. And so in 2005, I did. In fact, my old business, my stock market-based business, I had a partner in that business, and we had a partnership breakup in early 2005. So later in 2005, I created the product launch formula and rolled that out, and it was basically an instant success. And now my students and clients in hundreds or thousands of markets have done, over $500 million in product launches in just about every market and every niche and every type of product you could ever imagine. And so, in fact, one of my launches, when I rolled out Product Launch Formula 2.0, that launch, when we first opened it up, we actually did $1 million in 53 minutes in sales. And the sales didn't stop after 53 minutes. It kept on going. In 34 hours, we closed it down, and we did $3.73 million in sales. There was 1 second, because you can go back and look, and I'm a sort of a data geek. You can go back and look at your server logs or your shopping cart logs. There was 1 second where I made over $12,000 in sales. And I'm
wow.
like, my ultimate goal was, initially was to make $10,000 in a year, and here I was doing $12,000 in a second. And so it's just been a crazy ride.
You need to register that domain name. 12,000 in 1 second.
Yeah, I never bothered getting that one. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride. The kids are all grown up now. In fact, my son works in a business. And in fact, right now my daughter's been pressed. We're really busy right now. My daughter's been pressed into customer service because she's home from school for the summer. But yeah, it's been crazy. It's just unbelievable how it's all rolled out. And
this is the Internet Income Show, and we're talking with Jeff Walker. Now, Jeff, what I like about what you're doing is, and one of the criticisms with the internet marketing is saying, oh, you guys just sell, internet marketing products. But, I know you, and I met some of your students, and they're selling real products. It's not just in the make money online market.
Right.
Maybe you can give some examples of, people that you work with who've done really, really well using your strategies. Yeah,
absolutely. Like John Gallagher, sort of my prototypical case study. He was on. They were literally on food stamps. His family, him and his wife, and his two young kids were on food stamps when he got product launch formula. At that point he had a board game, and the board game was about is an educational board game about edible and medicinal plants and herbs. It was teaching kids basically how to be able to go out in the backyard or out in the woods and pick plants and use them as food or medicine. And when he started, he got that board game. It's a big, long story, but he tried to roll it out on his own, didn't work. Did the typical little launch party type of thing, didn't work, sold 12 games. And when you get games made up, you got to get a lot of them made up, like pallets full of them. So it was an utter disaster. Then pulled back, used PLF, sold 670 games.
Wow.
But it's crazy. And now, since then, he's sold 50,000 games, and he's built a business. He's way into six figures. He's got a team of 5 or 6 people. He's got a membership site at learningherbs.com. He puts out lots of different educational products, home study courses, online courses all about the using food as medicine and going out and foraging for food. So he's one. Susan Garrett, she teaches dog agility training. She's one of the foremost teachers in the world, but she could only teach a few students because she was in that role. So many of us are where your time's not leveraged, where you're, no matter how highly paid, if you're fundamentally working with people one-on-one, your time is limited, so your income's limited, and your impact is limited. And even though she was a great trainer, it was inherently a limited business. And so she now rolls out online training courses, and she doesn't like me to talk about her numbers, but they're extraordinary. And the thing, she's all about impact. She said, I used to impact dozens of people a year, and now I'm helping tens of thousands of dog owners and dogs have better lives each year. And she teases me because she's like, Jeff, your dog doesn't come all that well when you call her, but you're helping thousands of dog owners all over the world because of my work. And so, Will Hamilton, his tennis instruction site, fuzzyyellowballs.com, he's killing it. He basically, he's working with, he went from, working in his parents' basement trying to figure out how to get this to work, whether you really could sell tennis instruction online. And he was a tennis instructor, and now he's incredibly leveraged. He's working with some of the top pros in the world. He created a course with the Bryan brothers, the number one men's doubles tennis team ever. And Will's got a photo of himself wearing, the Bryan brothers won the gold medal at the last Olympics. And he's got a photo with their 2 gold medals around his neck. And this is, he's a kid, working in his parents' basements a few years ago. Now he's helping tens of thousands of tennis players around the world play better tennis, have more fun. Just go. Ruth Basinski. She teaches psychologists, psychiatrists, other mental health workers, nurses, how to help their patients with brain trauma or with mindfulness, meditation. And her site is NICABM. I can't remember if it's a .com or .org. And so this is an amazing story. So Mike, stop me because I'll tell stories forever about these people. but Ruth is amazing because she's teaching practitioners. She's not licensed professional health practitioners, and because the positioning she's built up and she just has an incredible position. She has top experts on her programs, and the top experts in the world on her programs, and has this incredible reach. So she was invited to come to this little symposium with the top mental health practitioners in the world to go and help the Army work with the mental health of their soldiers. And while she was there, so this is just a little small sort of mastermind, the Surgeon General of the U.S. Army came up to Ruth and said, I read your emails. I watch your videos.
Oh, wow.
Which means she's watching Ruth's pre-launch content, which is, this is a Surgeon General of the U.S. Army. And so it's like, you see where this has reached. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh, actually, one more. Franz,
sure.
I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. It's a lengthy name. He's from Austria. And he, along with a colleague of his, put together a training teaching doctors, and so I'm in your field now, I'm going to get this wrong, but how to read ultrasounds of the heart. So it's like NSEN something or other, a real long name. And they've helped train, and so this is a training that normally people used to have to travel to and spend a couple days to stay, certified and keep all up to date and everything. Now they're able to take this training online, and they've built a serious business, and they're helping hundreds, and maybe thousands of doctors, basically do a better job reading these ultrasounds of people's hearts. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing, and thanks for sharing that. But I'm gonna play the contrarian a little bit here. There's folks that, who are going into these different markets, and I'm sure you've heard, I've done it, but it didn't work for me, or it's getting too hard now. There's too much competition. What would you have to say to folks? Some who may be listening on this call who maybe don't know what the market is, or maybe you can share some things that you found that maybe those people you just mentioned, maybe they had something in common that let them do what they need to do to become successful.
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing is like, they all just went for it. They went for it with, and this is going to sound like a cop-out, but they went for it with a passion. Every one of them has a passion for their business, for making it work, for the people in their market, for helping them out, and for getting out there, for making an impact, for building a business, for being a success. And you know what? I look at the past, by most measures, I think I've had some pretty extraordinary success. But it started, the most important, I told you about that launch. I did $1 million in an hour. Well, the most important launch I ever did was $1,650, that first launch. It's all about baby steps. It really is. It's about putting your one foot in front of the other. Every morning, we wake up and we got a decision to make. It's like, are we going to take the day and we're going to make something of it or not? Every one of us has ups and downs. My friend Lisa Sasevich says it's like the Himalayas. We live in the Himalayas. All of us do, but especially anyone who's thinking about starting a business or build a business, we are that's the way we're wired. We got highs and lows. And as entrepreneurs, we got higher highs and lower lows. Well, that's the reality. It's like, I've had extraordinary success. Do I feel like $1,000 every single day? No. sometimes I sit down in front of my computer and say, oh, my God, I can't do this. It's like, I don't even know where to begin. Oh, I'm overwhelmed. I got too much going on. Yeah, absolutely. I have those days. Everyone has those days. But it's the decision you're going to make at that point. It's like, am I going to step up and am I going to let that thought rule my day and rule my life? I mean, this stuff works. Business works. I mean, the thing is like we're talking about internet marketing, but there is no such thing as internet marketing. There's just marketing. There's just business. I mean, back in the day in 2003 when we met, it's like the internet was something separate from business. There was business and then there was the internet. It was just, now there is no business in the world, outside of maybe like a hot dog truck driving down the road that can exist and not be online. It's all one thing now. Every business has to be online. And the thing is there's if you study the who's successful and the way they've been successful, it's not rocket science. It's never overnight success. I did $1 million in an hour. That was 14 years after I started. I'd like to tell people there's an easy button. It's funny because before the call we were talking about we have this mutual acquaintance, Chad Meisinger, and I went and hiked up Mount Whitney with Chad. He's a client of mine, became a friend. We went and hiked Mount Whitney. Mount Whitney is the highest peak in the lower 48. It's in California. It's 14,500-ish feet high. It's a long hike. It's like 8 or 10 miles up and then the same to go back down. You get up to the top and it's like a moonscape up there. And there's this one hut. There's a hut there that just for shelter because it gets pretty scary up there when the weather closes in. And there's a register there, meaning that you can go up there and you can sign in that you were up there. And really it's a register to let the rangers know that you made it. But then it's funny. You open up this register in this moonscape desolate, and there's an easy button there. There's literally someone had brought up something they bought. It was literally a big red button and it said easy on it. And it was the funniest thing in the world because it was really hard to get up there. I'm in really good shape and I do all kinds of adventures. I've done crazy stuff, all kinds of extreme stuff. It was it was like a 6,000 feet elevation gain in let's call it 8 miles. It was a long hike up. But then you're up there, and you have to go all the way back down. So you open it up, there's an easy button. I just had to laugh because, the person who left it there, they had a great sense of humor. There is no easy button. I'm at the top of the mountain, you have to walk back down. You got 6 hours of hiking to go down. That's the way life is, I wish there was an easy button that, I could make a lot of money if I had an easy button for internet success, but I don't, and I've never sold it that way, But the thing is, whether you use my system or not, it's the same thing. It's basically getting out there, putting one foot in front of the other, creating a presence, building a list, figuring out what the list wants, creating that thing, that offer for them, and giving it to them. And I just, I have a process that I've developed that helps you build that list, helps you build that relationship so you know what they want, and then helps you present that offer to them. But there's no part of that has got an easy button. So sorry for the rant.
That's awesome. No, that's great. That's great. We're talking with Jeff Walker, known for his product launch formula. So, Jeff, you've got a book coming out. It's called Launch, an Internet Millionaire's Secret Formula to Sell Almost Anything Online, Build a Business You Love, and Live the Life of Your Dreams. Now, you're known for these big product launches, these $2,000 courses. Why in the heck are you launching a book?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's 3 big reasons for it. First of all, Product Launch Formula is a $2,000 course. That's what it costs to go through my training. But for years, people are saying, hey, can't you just take this and distill it down for the mass public, for the people that don't have $2,000, that will never have $2,000, but that just want to somehow get a start, want to learn your stuff. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So it's basically to reach, a bigger audience. The second reason is, frankly, it's legacy. There's a little ego involved in this answer. It's what I've done. What my clients and students have done is changed marketing. It's changed business, especially online. No one was doing these things when I started. Now, I mean, these launch after launch, and they're so successful, and no one even blinks an eye when you say $1 million launch anymore. And so I created something that's really been a big impact. I figure someone at some point is going to write the history books about marketing, and this is going to be a big chapter, and someone's going to get credit for it. And I figure it might as well be me, since I was the one that created it. So there's that's the second one. It's just sort of this legacy piece. And the third one, quite frankly, is to generate leads for my business, because I know this book's going to sell really well, because I know how to bring something out to the market, and so it's going to do really well. It's going to sell a lot of copies, and some of those people are going to end up wandering back to me, and they might sign up for my full-blown training.
Jeff, this has been amazing, and I know you got busy with your launch. And if you guys want to check out the book, we've got a link for you. Go to internetincomeshow.com/thelaunch, internetincomeshow.com/thelaunch in lowercase. And, talk about actually, looking into an actual launch. Go there now, and you can see what Jeff is actually doing. Right, Jeff? They're actually going to see, if they sign up, they're going to actually see kind of your methodology of actually how you're launching the book at the time of this recording. The book hasn't come out yet, so now would be a good time to kind of peek in to see what you're actually doing, right?
Yep, absolutely. I'm pretty sneaky that way. Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably the best, I invite people to watch what I'm doing, because I am a product of my own product. I mean, I do what I teach, and I always have, and I always will. And so if you just, I give all kinds of great training, and you can get all kinds of great bonuses with the book. But, I invite you to also watch my process, because I follow my process to a T.
Wonderful. Well, Jeff, I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you again for spending the time with us. The book is called The Launch, an Internet Millionaire's Secret Formula to Sell Almost Anything Online, Build a Business You Love, and Live the Life of Your Dreams. It's coming out soon in the next few weeks, but go ahead and check it out. And he's just an amazing teacher. What I like about Jeff is just like, I've had the product launch formula. Just really give you good content. There's no fluff. There's nothing like that. It tells you what you need to do, and basically you just follow the formula, because it's a formula that you can implement for your business. So, Jeff, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. It was a lot of fun.
All right, guys. As always, thanks again for everyone for listening to the Internet Income Show. And as always, keep moving forward.
You just listened to the Internet Income Show with Dr. Mike and Eric. Now, get to work.